All right, welcome to the new episode of Cricketing Sense, episode number 4. Lots to talk about, lots to go about. The topics that we've encountered in the recent days. A lot of cricket, all around the world. I know friends who didn't even realize what matches were on, so it was quite exciting, quite interesting. After this IPL got over, so many matches came about, so many different kinds of formats being played, and I think the vacuum that, or the fact that IPL got over, and then people wanted to take a breather from cricket, and I think they did get refreshed, but they didn't realize when to switch it on and get back on the horse to support their own team. Anyway, that clicking was me fidgeting with the pen, which I promise not to do anymore. All right, so where do we begin? We begin with England versus New Zealand. I think we left off on the third day's evening after the close of play, and my prediction was that New Zealand will go on to win this game. However, the caveat was that Darryl Mitchell and Blundell will continue. I think that's what I had said. And unless there were heroics from the England seam bowlers, New Zealand were going to run away with the game. But you can never count the old horses or the old war horses. I think old, we have to be a little careful in the word old, because when you've got that kind of skill, the word old and the fact that there is an age factor takes a back seat. That's exactly what had happened. James Anderson and Stuart Broad just ran through the New Zealand batting lineup. I think it was probably Stuart Broad, but whatever. I think England played pretty well as a bowling unit. They got themselves together after the close of play. Must have been some inspiring talk from the captain and the live wire Brandon McCullum, who's joined England cricketing setup as the coach of the national team. England came out guns blazing, got the wickets early, finished off the New Zealand innings, and then there was the England batters who played quite reasonably until they did lose a few wickets. But I think it was Joe Root who led the way, and would you be surprised? Just an exceptional player. I think he was just burdened by the captaincy. A lot of things were not going well. A lot of unfortunate defeats owing to various circumstances, players being jaded, whatever, the coaching setup, the management setup. But however, he stood tall like you would expect from a player of his quality, and did an amazing job. Finished off the innings, and it did not seem that England were in any kind of danger whatsoever. So I would say, no, I think that was the wrong sound. Yeah, that is the right sound. Did an amazing job. So that was quite excellent. So kudos on that to Joe Root, and congratulations to Ben Stokes, who must have had a sleepless night or two in the middle of the game. That means the first test match. That set up the next test match for quite an interesting viewing, which is still going on. We're talking about the third day, England versus New Zealand. New Zealand have batted, but we'll come back to that after this next match that we discuss. India played South Africa in India, I think at Delhi it was perhaps, and put up quite a big total, 212 runs or 210 runs, and the captain KL Rahul got injured, I think. Quite unfortunate for him. And Kuldeep Yadav also had to suddenly back out due to some injury, which is quite a shame. Both those guys are proven match winners. So, but I think India have enough reserves to to fill up those spots. But it does take away from the team's morale and confidence that when one big player misses out, I think it takes a little bit of time to gel together, get used to the fact, okay, this guy is not there. Of course, the runs might come in, but I think there's that certain psychological vacuum which is left when a player of KL Rahul's magnitude misses out. Already they are missing Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma in this series. For other reasons, just I think those guys just needed a break. So India did post up a good total, 210 runs, I suppose, and they were doing quite well. Must have felt quite good about it. I think everybody played some handy knocks in there, and yeah, I'm just taking a pause to think about that unnecessary incident, or an incident which was a lot of people tried to make a controversy out of it. Yeah, in the last over, Hardik Pandya did not take a single with one ball remaining and give it to Dinesh Karthik. I think there is no controversy there. I think Dinesh Karthik would have agreed as well, because Hardik Pandya was already batting above, I think, over 30 runs, and I've played I've played a dozen balls, so he was in good touch. Karthik had just walked in, although amazing player in his own regard, and he's been brought in to act as the finisher. And I think there were 2 balls remaining. Hardik hit it, I think, towards mid-wicket region and refused the signal. And people were like, "Oh, how could he do that?" And does he think it too big on himself? The usual, just mudslinging as always. I think he did the right move, being there longer than Dinesh, and then already having hit a few sixes. It did give him that added bit of confidence that he needed, and to trust his ability, because he's already hitting the ball. So you would assume he'd want to be on strike, and India and Dinesh Karthik as well would want that Hardik stays on strike, which he did. Unfortunately, it didn't come off in the last ball, but you have to go by percentages. You have to calculate the risks. You have to think about what is the best possible thing you could do to put yourself and the team in the best position possible. And I think he did that. Sometimes, most of the times it comes off, I would say, because you have to eliminate the variables, and he did. Dinesh Karthik, he's done some magnificent innings. I do not think I need to remind anybody about what happened in Bangladesh in the Asia Cup when he just did those heroics. But this is not that situation, and you've got a very set batsman there who's smashing it all around the park. So you would want him to stay on strike. So that's about it. I think Hardik made the right move, stayed on the crease, and I think the hard work that he's been putting in for the last couple of years, I hope it pays off. He looks good. He's been bowling regularly, which showed, and the fact that he is also batting well, so that augurs well for him. The Indian team, the current setup which is playing right now, and the original squad and the main team, the full strength team which will play the upcoming matches. I mean, I'm not referring to this T20 series going forward, but also the World Cup, which is coming soon. These are good signs. Now, South Africa started well. Indian bowlers were not able to penetrate. They did manage to pick up 3-4 wickets. Rassie van der Dussen, he looked edgy. Did not seem to be doing too well. But I think once he got dropped by, of all people, Shreyas Iyer, and I think at this point in time, I think you could say that of all people to about just about anyone in the Indian team, because most of them are very good catchers. The fielding standards have gone up quite a notch, and so it was surprising. It can happen, of course. I think that's what RVD, so RVDD needed to wake up. I think after that was just a murder. He just smashed the Indian bowlers all around the park, and then David Miller, who's finally, I hope, coming into his own groove. As a spectator, you would want a player like him to succeed like he is, and like he was expected to be. He came onto the international scene as a trailblazer, as a swashbuckling batsman, as somebody who was just doing the job, and you were just left in amazement because he was just not he was not slogging. Those shots looked good. He was not losing shape, and he had shots other than just the six shot. He had good cover drives. He was getting to the pitch of the ball. He looks like a complete batsman who can play very attacking. Now, enough of that. I think in the end, um, they made the job look very easy, which was I'm caught up between giving you a point of view from an Indian perspective or as a cricketing perspective, which is quite neutral. I think I'll go with a neutral perspective. I think it looked very good. You do not want to be putting up against a team which is not in their full strength, or you expect to just walk over them. I think the fact that South Africa gave India a run for their money and actually won the game quite handsomely is what you would want. It's not South Africa's fault. It's not their request to be playing against a team which is missing a couple of stars. They did their job. They came full strength, as far as I can see. And I think they came here to win, which is exactly what you want from a visiting team, regardless which country they're from. So kudos to them. Today's the next match, which will start in apparently a few minutes, I guess. So that's about it. And then the other T20 series, which was flying under the radar, Sri Lanka versus Australia. Sri Lanka, with a lot of turmoil going on in the country, seems to be clinging to the happiness and joy that cricket brings to them. I do not know if that makes the pain of what the country is going through easier, but it's a sad situation what's happening there, and I hope it did bring, regardless of what's happening there, a few moments of smile to people's faces. The fact that some cricket was being played, that their own stars were performing. Australia, I think Australia batted twice, chasing, and I think they did it quite easily. Sri Lanka in the first game were looking really good until a point when they just lost like a ton of wickets for 15, 20 runs, and then they cruised to 130 or 140 odd, and it was not a big deal for Australia. They did it quite well. I think Finch finally broke through, and I say finally because he's a quality batsman. He's been going through a lean patch, and he's the captain. A lot of eyeballs on him. I think he mentioned that Warner gave him some good advice regarding how to go about pacing his innings, because he's been getting LBW regularly or bowled and struggling here and there. So I think that must have felt good for him as a captain. And then the second T20 was just looked too easy. It's easy to say it's looked too easy, but the fact that you expect quality performances from a team like Australia, they did their job well. That's what made it look easy. Of course, a lot of effort and energy and practice and concentration, focus, a lot of effort goes into making things look easy. It's just like an iPhone. It looks easy, but the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes, that's what a lot of people don't want to see or don't care to see. Anyway, I just wanted to clarify that. Not that I discount the effort that the Australian team puts in. Yeah, but they made it look easy. Let's put it that way. So that was that. I think the third T20, Mitchell Marsh was missing out. And now I think Mike Mitchell-Starc also went back after the second T20, or I think after the first T20 after some freak injury. I think it keeps on happening to him. I think he hurt his leg a few years ago, and now something with the hand. I do not know what really happened there at the back end or behind the scenes. But yeah, he went back. Regardless, Australia did come through very well in the second T20. I'm just repeating it. But in the third T20, Sri Lanka, I think, won the toss and decided to chase, just for the heck of it, just to see what it would feel like. Australia, they had a decent total, I think 150 odd, and considering how Sri Lanka has been faltering in the last few matches, I think that would have seemed enough. Now Sri Lanka had nothing to lose, so they went in, did struggle, and I think Australia did seem to be cruising for a longer duration of the game. And I think it was in the last 3 overs, and Dasun Shanaka really came blazing and just, I think, scored 40 or 50 runs in 3 overs and just stole the game from Australia. So now let's say a casual talk. I think Australia took it easy, but now let's think it from a thoughtful perspective, or at least I'll try to. I would not like to think that Australia took it easy. There is a certain quality to it because you're already cruising, but then you also cannot underestimate the fire that a team like Sri Lanka might, or the desire that a team like Sri Lanka might have. I'm sure they take pride in their performances. So they, or at least Dasun Shanaka, stood up and took up the challenge and just did not hold back because there was nothing to lose. You've already lost the series, but you don't want to surrender. And I think that's what he did. I think Australia, once Dasun Chanaka really start hitting, they must have got their ears warm. You wake up, what just happened? But I think it was too late. And the fact that in a T20 game, the margin for error is so less, you couple of bad overs and it's all over. So there is this strange quality to T20s, which is not there in 50 overs, because 50 overs still, I believe, is like a chess game, which I believe is what cricket is. But this T20 thing, this just throws a spanner in the wheels, and I like the short version of the game, but not to an extent, because there is no scope of recovery. It's like the stock market and day trading. If you're in the long run, if you're observing the market, you can plan your moves and come up with some kind of strategy. Not always foolproof, of course. But when you're talking about day trading, you are watching every bip, whether it's going up, down, and you just lose sleep, you're losing hair, you're turning gray. So anyway, that's my personal opinion. They did the job, did Sri Lanka. So did Australia, at least in the first 2 games, or at least till the 17th over of Sri Lanka's chase. But I think Dasun Chanaka just took them by surprise, because the margin was, or the run rate in the last 3 overs was quite high. So I do not think Australia expected that. And sometimes it's just your day. You can bowl as well as you want, as good as you want, but if it's not your day, it's not your day. Nothing's going to work out. So I think you got to leave it at that. I do not think you can criticize Australia that much. It can happen to anyone, but I think they must have learned their lesson, or even if they haven't, this is a good problem to have, to think about. I think that's what all nations with an ambition, who are playing cricket, must be wanting to experience. These uncharacteristic flares from the opposing team, where you're just taken by surprise. And I think you would want to have these surprises before a major tournament like the World Cup, then to have them right there and then be left stranded because you've never experienced something like this. So I think Australia came out winners in this game. They had a lot more that they can take back from it. Sri Lanka, they do have, of course, they won the game, so That means they'll be a wild card. They can surprise anyone. But I think they've got a lot to work on. You cannot expect to have these performances all throughout the tournament, which means having surprise performances every game. You need to have some kind of consistency, which is a hard thing to do for a team which is still trying to find its feet. And with all the turmoil that's going on domestically in the nation, I wish Sri Lanka all the best. I hope they can find some more stars. I hope they can find some more courageous people. I hope they can find more people who've got level-headed, or level-headed. And it's going to be the people who they already have in the structure, in the team setup, who will just have to stand up and just tell themselves it is their day. And it cannot be just one person. It has to be a collective effort. And it'll make for an interesting viewing at the World Cup. I think that clears up or concludes the Sri Lanka-Australia tour. Now the England versus New Zealand second test played at Nottingham. 553 runs. Again, the two guys, Blundell and Daryl Mitchell. I'm glad Blundell got his 100 because it was quite a heartbreak to see somebody work so hard in trying conditions in the last time they played at Lord's. So I think the batting conditions were much more favorable here. I think quite a lot of hard work for the English bowlers. Devon Conway looked good. I felt bad for him, how he got out, because he was playing beautifully. The cover drives were just spectacular. But I think they found some good players here in New Zealand. They already have found them, but I think they've discovered a new dimension to Daryl Mitchell and Tom Blundell, the wicketkeeper. These are good signs for New Zealand cricket moving forward. I think Kane Williamson had to set out, so England must have been quite delighted. However, apart from the fact that when he doesn't score runs, at least his captaincy is always there. So it's always a psychological advantage when your captain is not playing, whether he performs or not, but the fact that there's a psychological presence, the tactics and all. So at least it didn't show in the batting. Now England is playing in the second innings. They've only lost 2 wickets, 250 plus. Ollie Pope is past his 100, and of course Root is still batting. He's above. He's on 58, and Alex Lees, he did some good scoring. He made 67. Matt Henry. Oh dear, I think it's Mark Henry, but yeah, it's Henry. So he got him out. I think Zach Crawley needs to work on his technique. I think I was following this guy called Toby Bradford on Instagram, and he's quite good with his analysis and about the batting setup and how do you form your stance and the whole line of the face and of the head and the bend in the back knee and the stumps and the whole alignment thing. I think he pointed out something about Zach Crawley, which I think he's bending his back knee a little too much. I wonder if that is the only reason, but it definitely is something which is showing quite... it's rearing its head again and again. And he said the same thing about Daryl Mitchell, where Daryl Mitchell actually was following that principle of head being aligned with the bend of the back knee and the off stump and the foot all being in the same line. I think these are principles which do work. I play in a club here as well, where I live, and I was struggling quite a bit. But I think the pointers which Toby does give, and he's now, I think, joined the New Zealand cricketing setup as a batting coach in the domestic circuit. He's quite good. I think you should give him a follow on Instagram, or at least follow him on every given opportunity if you're trying to learn batting at a higher level. I think the things that he teaches are quite amazing. You'll only come forward as a winner. I've seen them at least, and I'm not an international level batsman of any sort. But the fact that I was just getting LBWs, I was getting bored, I was falling over every time I was trying to hit a cover drive, and I was, despite that, scoring runs. Now, with following his technique of this whole alignment system that he's got, which he very well he presented very well diagrammatically with all the lines and everything. So if you just follow it, I think you'll just see the difference in your technique and in your ability to score runs, how late and early you are on the ball, and all those benefits. Anyway, this match is quite well poised, headed to a draw. This is the third day, second session. England don't seem to be showing any signs of relenting, but on the other hand, one collapse from either of these teams and we're right back in it. So depends who collapses now. Does England collapse suddenly, or do they get close to the target of 553 which New Zealand put up and then collapse? And then declare or whatever. And then does New Zealand collapse? Because if England doesn't collapse now and New Zealand doesn't collapse, it's headed for a draw. So either the collapse has to come from from England right away, or in an hour today, or before the close of play. And I don't know. There has to be a 150, 160 run gap at least for, in terms of lead for New Zealand to make something out of it. Or England continues on their merry way. They score, 650 runs, which is, they are 260 right now. And I said only because time is a factor. It's a 5-day game. We are headed towards the end of the second session on the third day, so there's not so much time. So one of the two teams does need the collapse. That means England needs to have a collapse right now for New Zealand to have a good shot at securing some kind of result in this game, or New Zealand in their second innings definitely must have a collapse for England to have some kind of result. Otherwise, this is headed for a draw, which is not to say that is not a result, but the fact that we've been getting results in test matches so regularly that it'll be quite a shock not to have a result, which is quite exciting when you think about it, because we used to have test matches where there were no results at all, and you were just like, oh, what are we doing? Will we get anywhere? Will we have any result? It's so boring. But I think nowadays you are surprised when there is a draw. So I think we've turned things around. This is amazing. Got my fingers crossed. Let's see what comes out of this game, the second test match. And India is going to be playing against South Africa. India already have lost their first wicket. South Africa chose to bat, and let's see what happens now. I'll cover this either tomorrow or day after. And Pakistan is also playing West Indies, but I'll keep it under wraps. I think they did miss out on the Pakistani West Indies series, but I think I'll wrap it up after the third game because there's some fun things to discuss there. So that's it for me for this episode of Cricketing Sense with Aseem Dhawan. I hope to see you soon, and keep watching. Bye-bye.